Hi there. Welcome to Afro Perspective. Today is the 13th of April 2025. In just a few days, on the 18th of April, Zimbabwe is turning 45. For most people, this date is significant. It marks 45 years of Zimbabwe as an independent, self-governing state. However, for the majority of Zimbabweans, the 18th of April is now a dark reminder of what could have been. A reminder that the current leadership has failed Zimbabweans. For the majority of Zimbabweans, the current leadership has failed to put in place an inclusive democracy that respects the wishes of most ordinary Zimbabweans for a decent and better life. This signals that the country is at a crossroads. It's either going to transition into a mature democracy or it is going to turn into a state of civil unrest with the likelihood of collapsing into a failed state. Stay tuned as we explore the options facing Zimbabwe. For a start, the sitting president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is in his last and constitutionally mandated second term. It expires in 2028 and he is under a constitutional obligation to nominate a successor who is going to contest elections scheduled for 2028. However, that is only part of the story. Emmerson Mnangagwa plans to run for a third term. That third term is unconstitutional. He is limited to just 2 terms under the present constitution. His supporters are pushing for an amendment to the constitution under the so-called Vision 2030. So what is standing in the way then? Emmerson Mnangagwa is an old man. Officially he is 82, but those close to him say he is far older than that and insist that he is actually 86 years old. Some say he is now struggling with the effects of vascular dementia. Although the president's health in a country like Zimbabwe is close to a state secret, recently there have been images circulating on social media of a frail and elderly Emmerson Mnangagwa looking confused. In that clip, he is escorted to the podium by up to 5 security people and does not appear to know where he is. Related to the president's push for a third term and a potentially failed transition to a smooth handover of power in 2028 is the state of the ruling party itself, ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is riddled by the internal divisions and does not have a culture of tolerance where a civilized exchange of ideas is tolerated. Contrastingly, the opposition CCC party has been taken over by an imposter named Sengezo Shawangu and neutralized as an effective opposition. Its leader Nelson Chamisa resigned sometime in 2024. Recently, there have been unconfirmed rumors that Nelson Chamisa himself was bribed into resigning and offered a cool $20 million by the ruling ZANU-PF to effectively hand over the leadership of the opposition to a man nobody has ever heard of. The opposition is now, for all intents and purposes, a mere faction of the ruling party run by a surrogate chosen by ZANU-PF. For Emmerson Mnangagwa, it's important for his own survival as party leader and the fortunes of ZANU-PF to present Zimbabwe as a multi-party democracy, but the country is effectively a one-party state. Zimbabwe is a country run by a crooked elite surviving on looting state resources and laundering money from the award of state tenders into tax havens. A few people close to the president and his family have become filthy rich while the rest of the population are aching a living as vendors on the streets of the major population centers like Harare and Bulawayo. Most Zimbabweans are fed up with the current state of the economy, and there is little sign that things are going to change for the better anytime soon. With such levels of poverty for most Zimbabweans juxtaposed with the fabulous wealth For the tiny elite with connections to the ruling ZANU-PF party, most sober people predict that the country is destined for civil conflict and is likely to end up a failed state in the same way Somalia or the Democratic Republic of Congo collapsed into chaos in the mid-1990s. On the 31st of March, most major urban centers like Harare and Bulawayo resembled ghost towns, with most urban people engaging in a mass stay away from workplaces and their offices. However, the stay away is considered a flop. So if all the avenues for peaceful change are closed, what's left as options for a democratic and transparent transfer of power? At the moment, there is little to inspire hope. Take, for instance, the dire state of the ruling party itself. For most people, ZANU-PF is a party that has outlived its sell-by date. The party is largely in power through rigging elections. It lost to the opposition MDC and its successor, the CCC, in 2008, in 2018, and the last election in 2023. For the majority of Zimbabweans, the reason why ZANU-PF is in power has nothing to do with the voting preferences of the majority of ordinary Zimbabweans voting for a leader of their choice. It's to do with the ZANU-PF controlling the body that ran elections, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, known as ZEC. Most Zimbabweans, given the chance, would vote for the opposition. Most neutral observers claim that Nelson Chamisa, who led the opposition in both 2018 and 2023, won both of these elections. The ZEC was just not independent enough to declare his win. In fact, Emmerson Mnangagwa is not, for the majority of ordinary Zimbabweans, their choice to run Zimbabwe. That choice is their preferred leader, Nelson Chamisa. Even with ZANU-PF, within ZANU-PF itself, it took a military coup in 2017 to impose Emmerson Mnangagwa and his faction on other rival factions in ZANU-PF. As it stands now, there is no clear mechanisms on how ZANU-PF itself should choose the person to succeed Emmerson Mnangagwa. Some suggest he wants one of his sons, Sean Mnangagwa, a major in the Zimbabwe National Army, to succeed him. Some dispute this and suggest that Emmerson Mnangagwa wants his wife, Auxilia, to succeed him. Curiously, besides holding the largely ceremonial post of First Lady, Auxilia Mnangagwa does not hold an official post in the president's cabinet. Recently, Emmerson Mnangagwa has displayed his reliance on the top military brass to prop up his grip on power. He dismissed Anselm Sanyatwe as head of the feared Zimbabwe National Army and promoted him to a largely ceremonial role as Minister of Sports. Some suggest that the real reason why Sanyatwe was removed as head of the army was that Mnangagwa feared an imminent coup and could not trust Sanyatwe to stand by him. He appointed Emmanuel Matatu, a major general from his home province of Mas, the Midlands province, and elevated him to the rank of lieutenant general. He is 72 and is considered a Mnangagwa loyalist and had already retired in 2022. As you can see, ZANU-PF is relying on an aging crop of generals to maintain its grip on power. Emmerson Mnangagwa manages to do this by rewarding the current leadership of the military with gifts like farms and monetary rewards, as well as even perks such as top-of-the-range sport utility vehicles. However, as we saw in 2017, the military cannot be relied on to carry out a coup d'etat and hand over power to the civilians in ZANU-PF. The scary prospect is that the military might want to intervene in the factional wars in ZANU-PF and then keep power for itself. In 2017, Constant Chiwenga was then commander of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, whipped up the generals comprising the command element of the Zimbabwean military and carried out a coup d'etat. For the rest of the world, no one was prepared that a general would carry out a coup on behalf of someone else and then hand over power to a civilian. It was a very peculiarly Zimbabwean coup. For most people, what stopped Chiwenga taking over as military dictator was the reaction of the South Africans. It was feared that they would not tolerate a military dictatorship running a strategic neighbor like Zimbabwe. However, things have changed significantly since 2017. For a start, Chiwenga has shed his military uniform for a business suit and is now deputy to Emmerson Mnangagwa himself. Some expect him to take over as leader of ZANU-PF. But like I said before, Emmerson Mnangagwa wants a third term, and after that, one of his sons to succeed him. What stands in Chiwenga's way in terms of the succession battles in ZANU-PF and ultimately taking over as the Zimbabwean president is the lack of democratic traditions in ZANU-PF itself. Since its founding in the 1960s, the party has never held an open contest for its top leadership post, including that of president of the party. 10 years ago, it was faced with the challenge of choosing a successor to the then ailing Robert Mugabe, and it could not hold open elections within its structures. It took tanks on the streets of Harare to impose a successor on Robert Mugabe, and that successor is the incumbent Emmerson Mnangagwa. So what does the future hold for Zimbabwe? The answers are not so clear-cut. So who do you think should succeed Emmerson Mnangagwa? And do you think Chiwenga is the right man to take over as president of Zimbabwe? Please let me in the comments box below. Thank you. Bye.